Ideally, we just need at least one person on a squad who has really embraced and had the advantage of high quality security education. By that I mean simulations of a broken environment and a careful, thorough walkthrough of how you would fix it. Really hands-on stuff that we typically only reserve for the security team. We need to give that to the population, the general population of our organizations, and try to get at least one person on every squad to have that. And I think it's important to think about security education as it needs to be the best education that anyone gets within the org. Like not like the same as getting like a master's degree and getting tuition,
Yeah.
but like literally if you're going to offer something, it needs to be so compelling that it creates real understanding.
Welcome to Season 4 of The Elephant in AppSec, the podcast to explore, challenge, and boldly face the AppSec elephants in the room. I'm Alexandra, your host, AppSec enthusiast, and growth manager at Escape. Today, I'm joined by Kevan Bard, Director of Product Security at Morningstar. With 20 years of experience in information security, Kevan has helped shape security practices across various organizations. He is passionate about building blue team careers with a focus on recruiting, mentoring, and staff development. When not busy cultivating kaizen, emotional intelligence, secure coding practices, and data privacy principles, Kevan enjoys building community and capturing the world through his lens. In this episode, we explore why security needs to be institutionalized to win, and how the role of product managers should evolve to integrate security into their processes. We'll also discuss why storytelling is crucial in security education and why the term ASPM is overrated, particularly because its true value isn't being marketed effectively, especially in one-pagers that focus too heavily on bold claims. If you enjoy this podcast, don't forget to subscribe and follow it on your favorite podcasting app or YouTube. It's the best way to avoid missing future episodes. And with that, get ready to hear Kevan's opinions. Dive right in!
So, hi, Kevin. I'm very excited to have you on the Elephant in AppSec podcast and having the conversation now the second time after the RSA where we met also and had a great discussion on I think on a lot of different topics. And when we talked together, I think what you mentioned and that really struck to me because actually like several people mentioned it to me throughout like the whole week. The fact that right now you can see that the industry, the way organizations are actually where they're putting security in, it's changing, and that it should really change, and that we should put security more, within product teams. And after that, well, my husband is a like head of product, so I've asked him like, what do you think about that? And he said, well, it was met a little bit with like, no, I don't really think that. Or maybe if in the future, of course, for him, it's important to think about some features, and I think he's not the only one. And a lot of people would not believe specifically on the product side that they should be responsible for security. So how do you think we can change the mindset and make them actually think security is important from within your team?
Alexandra, thanks for having me, and it is great to see you again. I vividly remember having tea and cakes on the streets of San Francisco before RSA. That was a very nice chat we had. You're pointing to something that is true about me. I mean, I like to throw things out that are a little bit different than what people are doing today. Like I like to experiment. I like to come up with maybe thought experiments. But this I actually believe is true. Security only wins when it's institutionalized. I learned this from my colleagues at Morningstar in our ESG team. That's environmental, social, and governance analysis that really helps us identifying leading firms that make great long-term investments. So what they have told us is that the objectives of ESG need to be institutionalized. You can't just have a champion, a extremely persuasive person, or a very receptive technology leader. That's similar to a hero pushing a massive boulder up a hill every day. And that's going to work for you every day until that hero is no longer available. Then your security is just going to backslide. You need to actually institutionalize. And why I think that's going to live in product teams is that product teams at this point in time across many industries, including here, they are institutionalizing new ways to work. They're building out developer portals. They're getting access to feedback that's security feedback or bug feedback that's integrated into their work. They outnumber us vastly. So they're building new institutions of how to develop software at a very fast pace. We are relatively slow. We, the security practitioners and leaders, are relatively slow. So my belief is there's a possibility here, there's an opportunity to have that security institutionalization in the new ways that people are doing the development work. So what does that look like? You wonder what that looks like, I bet.
Yes. And how long does it take? Because that's also sometimes the question.
Yeah, there's going to be a massive, there would be a massive element of socialization and change management. And, this is going to take time, of course. But what it looks like is security requirements just appear in your design documents. You don't schedule a time. You don't raise your hand and say, hey, I'm making some security relevant changes here in my product or my project. We will have almost immediate feedback, just like we have almost immediate feedback with SaaS tools these days. They can be aware of a PR. They can look at the differential change, identify the flaws, and even rate them as exactly how much confidence you have in this finding, right? So we know that those technologies, those little point solutions, are changing the way the software gets built securely. I'm just saying, let's make it holistic and let's just co-create something with the development teams that they're doing this work. They're doing it more of it and probably better.
I think, well, they have usually, like right now, development teams, especially, with the rise of AI, they have this pressure. They need to ship super fast. They need to deliver very fast. You also have like external pressure from different stakeholders. So they have pressure from security, but then there is a, head of sales say, okay, so we really need you to ship this feature, otherwise we can't sell a 100K, 200K contract to our customer, because that's what it depends on. To have pressure from all the sides to ship there, but institutionalizing something, it takes time. So how would you recommend to someone to balance it in the meantime?
Well, we could talk about the meantime, but I do want to continue this thought experiment. Okay. So
Okay.
we talked about how it's not going to require effort on the part of product teams to get their feedback, to get their requirements. They don't schedule time with someone. It's not an asynchronous process. Okay. We really need to build it in. And this is something that I think is actually enabled by generative AI, right? I think that there are emerging set of tools that are not trivial usage of LLMs. We've all kind of seen those things and dismissed them. It's not very helpful. That will really embed the security knowledge in the effort. I mean, we're talking about agentic AI that's building code, that's building software. Why can't it have this knowledge? And why can't there be a different agentic AI in conversation with it? You've probably seen these agentic AI type conversational back and forth that's kind of eerie and spooky, but certainly promising. This is future talk, right? This is not today talk. I don't believe this exists today.
Okay, how far in the future? Because a lot of people, actually, there are always two camps of security people I talk to. One that believe, people that believe, that agentic is just a hype word, especially when it comes to security. That people like right now, I think like a year ago, we saw, I came across a meme like someone was selling this pen, oh, it's AI native. So everyone is telling that, and now it's more like agentic is the new thing. Or do you believe that it's actually the another camp? It's more that this is the technology that's the future, and this is the technology that will actually help us. Like, okay, we have different agents that will help us automate different parts of our work. So, what camp are you on? As I understood, like more the second one.
I'm going to misquote this, but I am in the camp of the future is here. It's just unevenly distributed. I think that the companies that are selling us, that are creating LLMs and advanced use cases for generative AI, I think they're doing this in-house. I think they need to be able to develop this way and have security work performed this way so that they can basically get the first adopters to agree, and then the rest of us will follow. Some people will be left behind.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people will left behind, but it's in any case, in any technological revolution, if you come, from industrial revolution, that's when how everyone felt. And now, well, it's more tech related, and everyone starts to feel the same way about AI. Because you mentioned like people building in-house algorithm, but some companies, they say the build in-house algorithm that's actually like a wrapper of OpenAI API, for example. So what would make you believe that that's really the technology that was built?
Well, I want to be clear here. I'm not suggesting that people build from scratch. I'm suggesting that people take the building blocks, wrap their head around what's possible, right? Like this wave of change is creating new possibilities. They have to be proven. They have to have a human in the loop. We're doing some work on my team where we're directly comparing the work of a human to what we can get with the Gen AI powered alternative. And it's not that the
Okay.
human's going to be better or worse. We think the human will be slower, but we think that we don't really trust the generative AI approach yet. So how do we get past that? How do we get the efficiency, but also the trustworthy results? That will be a fun journey.
What specific projects do you compare those results on, if you can share?
So without naming names of any solutions, I will say we would like to do security reviews on every change in the organization that we can find in our backlog in our wiki. So as people design changes or even greenfield whole new products, we want to be able to scour that information, make sense of it, figure out which security controls need to be set as requirements, and then give that to the team in a way that they can work on it. So that typically means Jira stories or comments on existing Jira stories. As they decompose the design into plans, into stories, we actually want to just insert our security requirements there. At a later date, I want to be able to validate that at least the important things are there before they launch. That's very hard to do at the speed of business these days, but that's my holy grail, is to be able to give the requirements in near real time and then be able to validate at least the important ones before we go live.
What would you consider as important?
I don't think we have enough time to discuss all of that, but
Okay.
the
Well,
AAA,
your business risk. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the things that are encoded in every single web application or every set of APIs, like there are some baseline controls. I don't want anyone to launch without them. I think that's just a foolish amount of risk taking.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't get exploited right away, I don't think we should encourage that behavior. The baseline security should always be there.
The goal is that it's not exploited straight away. The goal is, the vulnerabilities in production that can be exploited. I think actual exploitability is a huge topic that I've heard people talking about as well. Recently, I think OWASP is now building a tool that helps to kind of find the exploitability of a certain vulnerability and combine it into one dashboard. That's what I seen. And you also, on your side, you mentioned like you want to validate it and do like run out test and secure design reviews. But in this case, it means if we go back, to the initial exercise that we talked about, if security is within the product team, do you think, for example, it also would be a responsibility of the product manager to do those reviews, or there will be always someone, security?
Yeah, we're gonna have to leverage a lot of automation, and our automation needs the data that comes out of that, right? Scans and automated security reviews. It has to be contextualized. Not every product, not every feature is going to be equal. And so I think, again, this is where I see the promise. And I just want to go back to your question. How do you compare what a human does against what an LLM powered process does? We're actually doing it the hard way. We're keeping track of what it would take for a human to read every story, every wiki change for a month for a given project. How much time does that take? What are they
Oh,
able? What is their analysis going to result in, and how much time would it take for them to basically transcribe their requirements by typing things in to a development team's wiki and Jira? It's going to be a horrendous effort, right? That's
yeah,
what we're
it
comparing it
doesn't
to.
sound like a fun job, you know.
It's not a
I'm
forever
not
job.
sure
It's an experiment.
who has to do it, but I'm not sure how happy they were, you
The
know.
same person that today is trying to swat, play whack-a-mole, where, there's requests that pop up. There's only a day to turn it around, and the information is really hard to untangle. There's too much to read. There's too much to analyze. And so we really want to give that role a chance to be truly successful, truly impactful on the design review side in that part of
Okay,
the SDO.
so it was a specific role that you've designed for that.
Yeah, we have security architects on my team who are, again, tasked with reviewing designs, setting requirements, and helping validate that they get implemented before they launch. We call that a go live approval at the end. So
Okay,
security review leading to go live approval.
okay,
It's a
yeah, so
traditional model that doesn't really scale.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't really scale because you have to read through everything and then you have to take time. And I mean, with AI, hopefully, as you mentioned, yeah, it's going to scale. At
Yeah.
least that's whenever you're building something that's AI powered, the goal that it helps you be efficient, especially, you know, in this lean teams where you have a actually big developer to a security people ratio, where you have to, I think you mentioned to me before, a 10 people team, 300, I don't remember.
2000.
2000. 2000. I got you. That's 2000, 1 to 200. Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot to handle, for sure. So everyone has to kind of jump in on a new project whenever they need to, like that person has to jump in and review. That you mentioned, like, yeah.
We've had to be scrappy. I think you're going to ask me later about whether threat modeling could be conducted. It could be, but often we literally ask the enterprise architects to do the heavy lifting today. So in a lot of ways, just by virtue of being far outnumbered, we're already moving a lot of security work into the product teams. We have security champions. We have threat modeling taking place by enterprise architects. And I want to talk about more opportunities once we get to that point.
I have actually like a question about security champions that I just got in mind. Like, do you have them only among developers or also in other departments?
Also in other departments.
How, for example, on your side, how do you prioritize, more? You're, for example, responsible for product security, but I imagine there are things like insider threat that could also be important, or something from privacy perspective. How do you, for example, internally prioritize what to talk about, from security culture perspective
That's an
with other
interesting point.
leaders?
I mean, we are lucky in that we have a lot of attention from our board and from our senior leadership team when it comes to security and privacy work. And of course, it makes sense. We're adopting a lot of new technology, which carries risks, and we also think that trust is central and fundamental to our mission as a business. So that there's a good reason for that level of attention. But we're able to take the same message that we're carrying to the board and senior leadership team and translate it down to the security champions. I mean, the priorities that we're talking about to the most senior leaders are the same priorities we're talking about in slightly different ways to the front line. That's how you win. Like, you get alignment and you get understanding from both ends, the grassroots and the top.
Alignment sometimes it is hard to find depending how good
It's
communication
not where we
is.
started, right? Like,
Yeah.
like your point is, most of the time your security champions are only developers, and you AppSec are the only team that talks to them. You've pointed out the solution, right? Everyone who has a security message that needs to go wide, that needs to be built into the systems that we're purchasing or building or maintaining, all those concerns need to be at the table. And it's not just developers that need to hear it. I have people in the human resources function who are administrators of systems, administrators of SaaS. They definitely need security help and knowledge.
Yeah, and I think with the advancement of AI, for sure you need more and more education internally for different teams, like even on the things like responsible AI usage. Because if you install a new tool, you need to understand what's, behind it, what data you're ingesting, even like tools that help you build websites, what you're coding, and how do you also control that? And I think in the future, with all the possibilities around it, it's actually someone who works in marketing going to be the biggest potential threat
You
to
read
the
my mind.
organization.
You read my mind. Literally, the ingredients, okay, for this big monumental change that we're embarking on, that others I think should embark on, is internal marketing. Internal marketing skill is a make or break ability for your security and privacy team.
Yeah.
100%.
You need to build a security team brand for people to actually listen to you and to understand like the messaging that you want to send and why it's important for organization. And I think sometimes, like when we build security culture, these conversations that I heard, you focus too much on, whack-a-mole approach. Oh, you opened a phishing email. That's bad. Don't do it. But we don't communicate like why security is important. And if you, for example, on your side, indeed, what we talked about, like threat modeling, PMs in the future who should drive those sessions in the beginning, that when we build the features, sometimes like especially business logic of applications, it's something that's super hard to understand once it's built, and who should be the person initially who should be trying to understand what could be the potential vulnerabilities in the business logic of the new feature that's been built, that it's the PM who actually has 360-degree view on for all the stakeholders and what's important, even more than the security person.
Yeah, so this is maybe an unorthodox approach, but you touched on security education in your statement. I think ideally we just need at least one person on a squad who has really embraced and had the advantage of high quality security education. By that I mean simulations of a broken environment and a careful, thorough walkthrough of how you would fix it. Really hands-on stuff that we typically only reserve for the security team. We need to give that to the population, the general population of our organizations, and try to get at least one person on every squad to have that. And I think it's important to think about security education as it needs to be the best education that anyone gets within the org. Like not like the same as getting like a master's degree and getting tuition,
Yeah.
but like literally, if you're going to offer something, it needs to be so compelling that it creates real understanding and it's interesting. A lot of people I know actually in the development org want to do security because they think of it as like puzzles and problem solving, and that's part of it, but like we all know that's not most of it.
Yeah.
What if you gave them an idealized
It's
version of
not puzzles.
security? If you gave them an idealized, like the most fun part of security, and you said, this is how we make our education. We offer it, and it's going to be a major investment of time and money, right? Because that kind of quality security education is not going to be cheap. But I think that could really change things.
What is the most fun part of security for you personally?
We have a lot of early career people here at our headquarters come, especially in the summertime. We have many summer interns. We have some other early career hires. I actually love just striking up conversations, maybe introducing them to professional cybersecurity for the first time, learning from them. I no longer underestimate early career people. I think people who have curiosity and that energy can achieve amazing things. And it's just a squandered opportunity for us to not like get there early, get there early in someone's career.
And then shape them in a certain way. I think initially when you start your career, the companies where you work at, they do shape you in a certain way and approach how you should invest kind of in the company.
There's another reason why you want to be part of an amazing onboarding experience. I believe, and I wish I could quote this, but I believe someone did some insider risk data analysis.
Mhm.
And the people who had a bad onboarding, whatever the industry, whatever the role, if you had a bad onboarding experience, the likelihood of you becoming an insider risk is like 500% more, right? Like
Yeah.
literally we are creating the risks
Hmm.
the way that we
I mean,
onboard people.
that's not really surprising because if it's a chaos at that boarding, it really takes a long time for someone to understand. And in the long run, you just don't know all the implications of what you're doing, for sure. And you can just like blast very private company information to really a lot of people without actually realizing that that's the problem. Yeah. I can definitely see like the interest that I had, the more I invest in them in the beginning, the easier it is for them to understand what's important for the company, the easier it is for them to execute afterwards independently, and the better they collaborate with other people internally as well and understand
It's almost
what's
as if the
important.
preparation phase is the most crucial.
I mean, it's actually is in terms of velocity and risk for sure, for sure, for sure. And I also saw, I think it was you mentioned it was 8 years ago or something like that. The talk that you gave less, on product security, but it was on DevOps and GRC and how those two can collaborate together, which is I think since well, like how mostly it's how they. I think it's
There's a meeting. I don't know that
yeah.
it's an integration.
Why don't you
The
think
rise
that
of
there can
DevOps
be?
made a new sort of compliance effort necessary, right? Because you're talking about continuous delivery. You're talking about there's so many changes. Of course, there's not going to be someone authorizing each change, evaluating each change. A human can't keep up with continuous delivery in an enterprise setting. And so the opportunity on the other side was everything is becoming so standardized. Everything is an API. We could have policy as code. We could we could move some compliance work into software, right? And full
Mhm.
automation. You could even, like, there's regulations have emerged since 8 years ago. Thanks for dredging that up. That you need to have more continuous monitoring of your controls, such as the latest version of PCI. If you're a service provider, you have to keep track of when your controls failed. What controls failed and when? That is a requirement. You need to be able to document. The only way you can do that is if you're monitoring, at least daily, all of your security controls. How would you do that with humans without? They have to have automation, right? You have to be able to create your own audit trail of your own program, at least for your PCI environment. So those were the some of the topics that I was trying to get at. It's not a great presentation. I wouldn't recommend watching it, but we could
It's full
talk.
of memes.
It's full of memes. If you like 8-bit video games, you might like it. But here's the thing. There's always going to be GRC work that doesn't fit very nicely with a developer or builder mindset. There's just certain things comes to mind, like contract review. You got to meet the
Similar.
auditor at the door, right? Like, you can't do that with software. The auditor comes in. There's a human element to the practice of auditing, of course. You're not going to want to do that entirely with software. I wouldn't want my auditor to talk to a chatbot. Let's just say that, right? I
Yeah.
bring some value to the table.
You need to play a little bit of politics there as well.
That's right. You know it. You
Yeah.
know it. And
So
I wouldn't want my policy to be written entirely by bots either. Policies embody a lot of
culture.
concerns as you change them.
And how do you
Anyhow,
think like product security, for example, should collaborate with GRC? Because there it was specific like DevOps, DevSecOps, and DevSecOps is just in a sense subset of product security because product security is much larger scope. And I think I've seen, for example, some presentations about GRC specifically where on the risk, how they model the risk with different statistics models and probability models. How, for example, do you as a product leader security leader would like to make sure that they take into account the calculation of risk on your side and the product security side?
I'm going to dodge that question a little bit because I want to point out another area of value where we are collaborating, where GRC and product security are collaborating. Some new needs arise. Let's say a new requirement comes around, or you get a new customer, they have something specific that they want. I think that my GRC colleagues are able to articulate what the customer's looking for, the outcome. I rely on them to say, okay, what's the outcome? Don't give me a solution. Don't straitjacket the org, right? Give me some freedom to get that outcome. But what is the outcome? You own that GRC. I have the technical team and an experience to implement technical security that will fulfill that need. Really tend to form like cross-functional task forces around these types of things whenever there's an emerging compliance need. Even if it's for one customer and one product, like I still figure it makes sense to do a cross-functional effort and figure out who does what. It's worked really well. I actually, I've worked with other large organizations in financial services, and they're so siloed in their security efforts that you can't actually get a call with everyone who needs to be there. It has to come from one team and go through a communication channel that you're not part of. It's so disconnected.
Do you have any practical advice on how to make it connected? You think it's something that's possible to influence on your own?
Yeah, it's excellent. If you are a truly diligent security or compliance worker, you're going to care about the mission. Okay. You're going to think about the goals, and it's not going to be about, well, I did my part. I sent the email, I set up the meeting, I'm done here. You're going to extend yourself further. You're going to care about the outcome. You're going to care about your colleagues and your customers, maybe even your auditors' experience in life.
I mean, maybe, it still influences whether or not you get the fine. So it is important.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, certainly you need somebody who can tell a story in all of this, because oftentimes our work is cleaning up a mess, is dealing with learning from failure. And so even that is a very important aspect of what I try to bring, and I try to encourage others to do, is like tell the best story, make the most out of this that you can, even though it's an adverse event. There's learning.
Yeah, I think sometimes telling the best story is one of the hardest skills to learn, but also one of the most important ones in every job, whether you're telling the story to your leadership, to a manager, to people who work for you, to inspire them. And we, unfortunately, like at school, we don't teach people enough that how to do that efficiently on like literature and the books. But I think that's, for example, as well as financial literacy, something that should be taught
Let's turn the
early.
tables for a minute. Where did you learn how to do that?
Well, I loved writing when I was still in high school. So I participated like in writing competitions, and I loved to read. So for me, that's definitely something that helped a lot. And it then is just practice. Since I studied engineering, I didn't have to tell a lot of stories, mostly to the projects. But that's sometimes, the problem. But I did a lot of projects on the side. That's also helps a little bit. Well, now, since I work in a very different field from mechanical engineering, it's kind of my day-to-day job in a sense as well.
That's really fascinating. I have a young person in my life who's going to enter the engineering discipline soon, training, education, and the industry. And I also think it's an incomplete education if you're just talking about your requirements to get an engineering degree, certification, and so on. We'll see. All the mentoring I do with people who are software and other types of engineers, I end up having these discussions about you have to be influential, you have to be a good communicator, you have to tell a story.
I think it helps if within the curriculum you have projects where, let's say, for me, for example, I had a project where I had to pitch a startup idea to a large French aerospace company. So that's at least a part of that. You learn cross-functional collaboration, you define roles, your goal is to tell the story why your idea could be important for them around. So if you have that part of curriculum in mind, then it's also very useful and exciting to do, a little bit more exciting than using 3D modeling tool. Yeah. At least that was on
That
my
can be
side.
frustrating. So, that storytelling superpower that needs to be developed in all of us, that's going to help you a lot in your career. That's going to help you get your job. That's going to be part of your, your interviews, telling a
Yeah,
story about
because
who you are.
yeah, I think that's the most hard part for the interviews, to be honest. Or sometimes, more we unfortunately sometimes even when we hire someone for engineering department, it's not always like we hire someone for skills, but in the end the person has to work with a bunch of other people, which is also important part to evaluate on as well. And I have a new last section for the episode. It's one question for the season. So what's your least favorite security buzzword?
Ooh, that's tough. I want to say it's anything that ends in the letter DR. That's not my area of
Okay.
expertise. So like
Like
XDR,
either, yeah.
MDR. It throws me off every time that I get kind of wrapped up in one of those situations, but it's unfair because I don't really know that space. I know enough to be dangerous. So I'm gonna throw the term ASPM under the bus.
Okay.
Which is kind of
Why?
ironic because we just invested it in what you could call an ASPM. But I don't find the term and the way it's being marketed to be very helpful. Applications live in environments, so the ASPM that we chose includes cloud security vulnerabilities, network vulnerabilities. I mean, we did not just focus on application vulnerabilities.
Okay. So it's
And
everything in once,
it's
basically.
kind of an everything. It's kind of a unified, almost like a fusion center for vulnerabilities and misconfigurations, right? The problem is the real value of an ASPM isn't even communicated in the one pager. The one pager says, kind of wild claims like, we'll help you identify previously unknown flaws, or we'll give you a clear, simple roadmap to becoming fully secure. Totally bogus. Okay. It's a complicated world out there.
Clear roadmap. It's a very big claim.
It's a very big claim. I mean, what it should do is it should transform your security data from scans and even pen tests and all of the assessments that are happening like all the time. It should be able to turn that into actionable intelligence. Who needs to be the fixing team? That's the first thing that an ASPM needs to supply, right? Maybe which items are we going to work on now versus we got to parking lot these for some reason and somebody's going to accept the risk of that. That's obviously going to happen when you have over 1 million open flaws in an enterprise, which they all do.
Yeah.
Some things will get in the parking lot because, valid reasons. We just want somebody who's responsible management to say, I accept this. I acknowledge this. I accept this. End of story. It's not that complicated.
With more than 20 ASPMs out there, I think for them it's kind of complicated.
Let me finish my thought. So every source that I have, I won't even name the name brand, but you can probably guess. There's one name brand source of security information that I think already does this, and I don't need to do this in my ASPM. You have to contextualize your vulnerabilities, meaning you have to figure out where a combination of exposure, exploitability, impact, and maybe data, and maybe identity, all of these factors combine to create, this is actually a critical issue. This needs to be solved within the next 7-15 days, right? Like that is what your ASPM should give you. Filtering, contextualizing. And the last thing I'll say, there's more than one way that these fixing teams operate. Normal patching solves a lot of that pile of vulnerabilities. So me cutting Jira tickets or dropping Slack hints into people's already cluttered Slack channels, not going to help me. I just need patching to be fixed for certain machines, for certain containers. You don't really patch containers, but you know what I'm saying.
Within a specific amount of,
right.
Within a specific time, yeah.
Right. And whole new tasks emerge. Once you have this approach to ASPM, a whole new task emerges of, I got to manage my unowned issues. There's a bunch of issues that didn't get mapped to an owner. Should I let that sit forever? Probably not.
Yeah, probably not, but you end up postponing it and because
No,
it's
not at all. Not at all. So not only did we bring in a new system, we're actually forming a new team and we're reorganizing some of our security folks, bringing in people who have the background of working in a managed, almost remediation ops setting where they're working for all these different clients, burning down these backlogs. These are the skills and experiences you need to tackle, again, SPM.
yeah. So you actually need more headcounts to use the new tool that is
Yes.
supposed to simplify. But
We changed our dashboards. We changed the fundamental messaging we gave to the business. It no longer became a snapshot of where you are in terms of vulnerability, which changes every day, of course. It became, how are you performing in terms of, here's a rate of arrival, here's a rate of fix. You want more fixes than arriving flaws, obviously, and you want to be fixing the right things. You want to be fixing the truly contextualized criticals and highs faster first. That's what we're measuring now. We never measured that before.
okay, and this has changed just because of ASPM that you introduced?
ASPM and a related dashboard project, but the ASPM feeds the dashboard. So again, this is not, I don't think this is that cutting edge. It's just, it's not what's being marketed. It's not what
That's the
people think
problem
of.
of the marketers who work at those companies, I guess. There is a dissonance between what's the tool used for and yeah, what's actually what was being communicated. And if there would be one book that you could recommend to the younger generations, like you mentioned, there are some young people in your life, engineering, or maybe you also interns, who are coming out this summer, there would be one book that you would recommend them to read about security. What would it be?
I'm going to give you two books. I'm sorry. The first one that I give
Yeah, it's
to my
okay.
interns or new members of my team, they always get a copy of Cybersecurity First Principles. I think the first 100 pages or so is a great introduction, right? Because it explains in business terms, why do we exist? It tears apart certain myths about it's all about the CIA triad. That's not sufficient. That's not why we get funded. I think you would agree. We could
Yeah.
talk about it more, but it really does a nice job of introducing newbies and level setting. Why do we exist? What should the mission really be here? The other book I want to recommend, maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. It's old school. It started as a file in the mid 70s that early
Okay,
programmers at
no.
the MIT AI lab and some other sort of groundbreaking teams back on mainframe days and mid-range days built. It was called the Jargon File.
Okay,
And in
no, this I haven't heard
1983,
of.
yeah. In 1983, it was first published in paperback form as the Hacker Dictionary. There's been a few versions of the Hacker Dictionary. I love dictionaries for some reason. I collect them.
Okay.
You got to find this. You'll find it online. The Hacker Dictionary is full of these terms, some of them not polite, but some of them still in use today, still have descriptive power, and they will make you laugh.
Yeah, I'll put the link under the episode for sure, so people don't have to Google or ChatGPT it right now. This is the first time. Cybersecurity first principles, yes. I've already had some of the guests mentioning it, but Jargon is the first time, so I definitely put the look at it and put the link in the description. Well, thank you so much, Kevin, for coming on the podcast. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I think I'll learned a lot from your experience, and I'm curious to see, like, in a year or two from now, how many orgs will see were implemented, stabilization of security at scale. We'll see.
I'm also interested in, and I would be glad to chat with you again about that and for the audience.